Winter's concluded, spring's began, and I'm here to give the undeniably best takes on what the best and worst anime of winter 2025 were. At the end, I'll crown one anime as the best of the season and another one as the worst of the worst. Let's not waste time and jump right into placing shows on the tier list. I know there'll be some things we don't agree on, so don't flame me too hard in the comments. Despite my better judgment, I watched 2 episodes of Benny Neko. The elf girl's cat is secretly an S-ranked monster, and that was enough to convince me I made a terrible mistake. Yeah, that's gonna be D tier for me. We're already starting the tier list off strong. Headhunted to Another World from Salaryman to Big 4 was one of the few isekai in winter I'm willing to praise. Besides the lack of the harem trope, the anime doesn't fall prey to overpowered main character syndrome and utilizes the main character's experience from his former world. Uchimura is a career salaryman familiar with negotiating business deals and resolving interpersonal conflicts, which actually makes sense for a competent demon lord to summon someone with that skill set. Uchimura strengthens the demon lord's army through negotiations, makes meaningful connections, and for the first time in his life is recognized and appreciated by colleagues and bosses alike. Its biggest fault is being a weak story pulled off exceptionally well. Headhunted to Another World deserves B tier. When it came to my evaluation of Honey Lemon Soda, I was right on the mark. Miura brought the formerly bullied Ishimori out of a stony personality she'd crafted to protect herself for years, resulting in her making friends and improving her self-confidence. The problem for the anime is with how this is achieved. It's always Miura swooping in to say and do the right thing, in the most convenient way possible. Like I'm supposed to believe in the absurdity of him inviting some random girl crying in the street to go to the same high school, and that he'd have the awareness while sleeping most of the day away to consistently help her out. Honey Lemon Soda may have been a better romance when compared to those of the season, but pales in comparison to predecessors that fit into the same mold, like From Me to You. This wasn't a waste of time, but isn't better than C tier. I don't look back at I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time with a lot of fondness. When present, the party dynamic was what I prefer to see. A nice distribution of the genders that doesn't deteriorate into fawning over one character. The negative side of the anime is a plot that was just a continuous circle of Alina not wanting to do overtime, joins party to defeat the cause or future cause of overtime. Overtime still happens, and then the cycle repeats. I'm also fundamentally at odds with the anime's view of overtime, which is essentially the idea to accept doing it. I hate overtime and refuse to do it even in cases that it benefit me, because the only outcome from it is burnout. I may be a guild receptionist, might be D tier, but the top of the tier since at least it wasn't complete trash like the other fantasies here. The fantasy anime this winter was some of the most uninspiring money grabs I've watched as they were airing, and there's multiple seasons of this to consider when saying that. As the volume of shows that fall under this genre increase year after year, I'm exhausted from voicing the same grievances with no hope over the horizon. If I went over each one this time around, I'd end up crashing out over the same criticisms, so I'm gonna lump the majority right here. The harem theme was inescapable, whether it was explicitly labeled one, or the anime heavily implied it from characters' actions, as well as party makeup. The least offensive show that fit in this theme was I left my A-rank party to help my former students reach the dungeon depths, due to not waiting till the plot was almost wrapped up before exploring the jealousy of the former party towards Yuke. Otherwise pretty unmemorable, and even then nothing of the harem theme deserves to be outside of D tier. Then we have the worst offender. I'm a noble on the brink of ruin, so I might as well try mastering magic. This barraged you with factions and a nonsensical magic system only in place to make Liam seem like a genius that can easily learn and master every possible discipline of magic in the isekai world. There was no reason to care for characters outside of them being his familiars and just being there to be soft harem elements. I get it. The anime wanted to be a nation building simulator, however, even one of the best examples of that, reincarnated as a slime, practices building up other groups, not just introducing them at random. Solo Leveling Season 2 was the anime I was anticipating the most from after a strong first season, as well as the level up in animation seen with the early airing of the first episodes via Reawakening. As Season 2 got underway, this excitement quickly turned into disappointment. For whatever reason, the decision was made to forego many of the things that made this part of the story my favorite of the series. I don't think shows or movies have to follow the source material 100% to the T, and deviating can even improve them in some cases. But if abandoning the main point it conveys, that's where I disapprove. From my perspective, this is the most crucial period of time for showing Jinwoo's humanity, which the anime has done more to invalidate through rushed pacing and failure to build up characters, like Gun-hee for the trade-off of Jinwoo's ore farming. And even then, the viewer critiqued moments when he was emotional. Solo Leveling Season 2 wasn't bad, I just felt betrayed, knowing what could have been. I do acknowledge how impactful this season was for pulling in non-regular anime viewers, I just can't view it as anything other than B tier. I was pleasantly surprised by Welcome to Japan Miss Elf. Kazuhiro and Mariabelle had a very natural progression of their relationship as they got to know one another, as well as each other's worlds. With how dominating the harem trope was this season, I was worried by Ridra's introduction, however she turned out to be more of a motherly matchmaker to our main characters. The biggest standout for me was the anime succeeding with using two settings, largely due to a main plot of Mariabelle and Kazuhiro's exploration of different locations. I recall isekai like Isekai Cheat Skill sloppily trying to tell two stories depending on each setting that just didn't work. Welcome to Japan Miss Elf was a wholesome, well put together romance isekai that got you to care for the characters and didn't do anything to undermine its plot. B tier. Apothecary Diary Season 2 is a successful continuation of an already fascinating story. The wealth of secrets within the palace, unraveled by a seemingly unrelated yet deeply connected Mao Mao. She's a wonderful character and a great foil to the concubines of the palace, seeing as she isn't a captive to the desires of the emperor like they are, and is given considerably more freedom to chase her own interests. Despite this ownership of the concubines, they present us their reasonings and in some cases even pose the question, is this life of luxury that bad? Apothecary Diaries continually reminds us of how cruel humans can be to one another, with examples like parents trading their own children and nobility for power, even if that means a young child is forced into giving birth to an heir. There's nothing negative to criticize about this anime. It's well animated, keeps you engaged, has fleshed out characters, isn't afraid to bring up uncomfortable ideas, and its story gets you to critically think. Apothecary Diaries Season 2 is A tier, and the first one at that. Medaka Kuriwa Is Impervious to My Charms was a bland anime that failed to grab my interest due to a lack of substance and the I just want to convince Medaka to like me plot sucking. Characters fell into three camps: females vying for Medaka's interest, Mona fans, and lastly Mona. Medaka was only there to chant a sutra. Any potential of exploring characters in one of these camps is just ignored, so what's the point in caring for anyone? The moment this anime devolved into a romance triangle, any hope for something of quality went out the window along with me. Medaka Kuriwa Is Impervious to My Charms was D tier. Takamoto Days was a solid, fun anime. However, the longer I thought about it, the lower my opinion grew. The characters look distinct, the fights are well animated, it's just that there's no meaningful reason to be invested, and a lot of the anime is unmemorable. I know I'm supposed to care about Sakamoto and his convenience store employees as they transition away from a life in the underworld, yet I just can't bring myself to be. Takamoto Days is being placed in a B tier. I didn't expect much from I'm getting married to a girl I hate in my class, but I didn't think by the end of it I'd have a better opinion of Masamune-kun's revenge. This anime is literally every trope of love polygon romances. Male MC is effortlessly intelligent, female MC is a tsundere, there's a weird brother and sister / cousin dynamic, a middle of the season love interest only introduced to be chaotic, then barely show up again, and finally the main characters realize they like one another. I'm Getting Married was lacking in any type of uniqueness, and the final nail in the love polygon coffin for me, D tier. It's always nice to see an anime improve upon itself with the second season. My Happy Marriage expanded upon the supernatural elements through how they were utilized within the government system and why Miu's power and her family's lineage is so strong. The different factions vying for control of Dreamsight were developed upon further, which was nice to see since it was less defined in the first season. The standout element of season 2 was the reversal of the main characters' roles in the story. I don't know if I've been conditioned by shonen and fantasy to assume the female lead as a passenger to the story, but that hasn't been the case here, with Miu stepping up in a large way. I especially enjoyed Naoshi being a mirror of the destructive power that Miu can misuse if she'd gone the same route, and was lacking in strength of character or morality despite her setbacks in life. Unfortunately, the finale of season 2 was delayed multiple weeks, negatively impacting the airing experience. Some people might not have enjoyed it as much due to the tone change as well. My Happy Marriage season 2 would have been A tier barring the finale, so B tier is where it'll have to go. Originals are one of the hardest types of anime to get right. There's nothing to go off of. Someone just showed up one day to pitch a story and a person in the company with some power decided it was a good idea. In the case of Zenshu, I'd imagine it was something like, what if we made an anime about one of us isekai to the anime that inspired us to be an artist? Which when said like that makes the anime sound worse than it actually was. Zenshu was an engaging end-of-the-world fantasy scenario where Mappa flexed how much better they are compared to almost everyone else in the industry at animated. Natsuko was a fun character to watch navigate navigate a tale of perishing with her knowledge of how the story unfolds. The vagueness of the voids, why they want to destroy soul futures, and the powers in the anime was its biggest weakness. However, it helped create a dreamlike feel as Natsuko learned what love is. Zenshu is deserving of A tier and one of the only two isekai in winter that deserves to be praised. There's no sugarcoating it, Ubelblatt was bad. It's a tale of revenge without the context of why Quenzel seeks to avenge himself besides the Seven Heroes' betrayal. I don't know how they became heroes or why they'd stab him in the back, which just led to an unsatisfying experience. The animation sucked, every fight was how far can we make blood spray across the screen, why does every chick have to be in their underwear at some point? Ubelblatt was D tier. I wanted Ashura Season 2 to fix the problems of the first season, however it ended up being more of the same formula. Introduce characters that all tie into one grand plot. The problem is other characters are introduced for the sake of building up the main ones just to be abandoned, then we're already on to exploring the next one. Without time, you can't really care about anyone, and someone's story you'd like to see explored further won't be until we get to the grand plot's finale. Ashura Season 2 was D tier, and I won't be continuing with any future seasons. For the best anime of winter, there's two shows in A tier, Apothecary Diary Season 2 and Zenshu. Between the two, Apothecary Diaries is a more compelling story as well as cast. Mao Mao continues to solve issues no one else can, and has even began to grow as a person. She's definitely still standoffish, but we've began to see her open up to the other characters. Jinshi on the other hand is experiencing difficulties doing the same with Mao Mao due to how he believes it could ruin their relationship. It's also been great to see the palace as a place become much more explored, as well as the roles and interests of people outside the concubines. Bogus Skill Fruit Master was the worst anime of winter 2025. The power system from the skill fruits was trash. How is a Sword King unable to win a battle versus someone with a sword, and how can an ability called Thunder Charge create a sword and summon dogs with this power? It just becomes who can imagine the stronger thing with their power. All the potential stakes are just minimized, knowing Light will eventually eat a skill fruit during an encounter that'll trivialize it. And with that, everything's been placed on the tier list. There was an abundance of mediocre romance and fantasy pulling down the overall quality of winter. However, there still was some heavy hitters to keep the season afloat. What did you agree with, disagree with, or straight up hated my take on? Let me know in the comments below, and with that, I'm out.